Short term, you never know. You never know. Yeah. Yeah, that was a storm home.
Okay, does it?
It says it's being live streamed. Let me just go check it real quick. I have like 80 million windows open. Yep, it's live. You're good.
Great.
80 million windows open. And they just heard me say I have 80 million windows open.
You're really?
How are you?
No. Feeling better?
Yes.
Good, good. Oh, yeah. See you. We're gonna guess, yeah. Hopefully it's better days. Oh, look at the bird.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi, Gavin.
Oh, hello. This is wonderful. This is great. Technology is absolutely fantastic. Okay.
Do you hear us okay, Gavin?
This is
I
why I
can,
love you, Gavin.
yeah. And yeah, I can. Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Good to have you.
This is why I love you, Gavin.
Do we look like we're gonna have enough folks?
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, but we hear you.
Okay, sorry. That'll be the last time I ask that. Thank you.
Wonder if there ought to be some measure of explanation, perhaps maybe we can write in this phrase. Because, I mean, I'm just looking at it a legal point of view, you know, and considering his alignment with this. He's seen as preferential treatment.
I didn't usually, I'm sorry? Okay. Okay. Great. What will we want to have on the screen, the agenda or this scene of us? Ah, okay. Either way.
And I have it here too.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's good. No, it's not, it doesn't all, right? So we got, I think, enough people. Okay. Welcome, everybody. So good to have you here. We're going to try to start pretty much on time. And I'm going to call our Faculty Senate meeting for November to order. And we'll go ahead and do the roll call first.
I know that a number of people might come in a little bit later, as people enter. All right, Alan. Thank you. Banford. Oops. See people in a second. There. Okay. Barrett. Brandenburg.
Here.
Carmenica. Carmack.
Here.
Chambliss.
Here.
Chang.
Here.
Corley. Croft.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
DeWeese. Dutt. So we're here. Clear. Thank you. Dyer.
Here.
Edelman. Elman.
Here.
Urban.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Okay, Galt.
Here.
Graphius. Might not be there. Green. Hadley. Hester. Here. Garapazmino.
Here.
Okay. Khan.
Here.
Nice.
Here.
Kramer. Gavin Lee.
Here,
Thank you.
here.
Sungwon Lee.
Yeah, Sungwon Lee is here.
Thank you. William Boone.
Here.
McKinnon.
Here.
Thank you. Mason.
Mason here.
Thank you. McClenny.
Here.
McLean. Great. Olivieri Parker.
Here.
Overfield.
Here.
Thank you. Richter. Riker.
Here.
Thank you. Roberts.
Here.
Rollins.
Here.
Scullin.
Here.
Shepherd.
Here.
Shin. Shoemake.
Here.
Thank you. Snipes.
Here.
Thank you. Swift.
Here.
Sykes. Talbot.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, Colleen is here for Van Balen. Weber.
Here.
Thank you. Way.
Here.
Thank you. Williams.
Here.
Thank you. Wofford. And Yoder.
Here.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, I'll just note quickly, the minutes were approved October 17th for our last meeting. And now we're going to move to administrative reports, and I'll turn the time over to President Kelly.
Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have a handout.
Yeah.
I'm gonna help, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And I have, I'm gonna send Dr. Weber, the complete data set. The last time we talked about, and had a good question about what does the demographic cliff actually mean? Said that I'd come in with some data, this time. So what I brought you is projections from 2000, 2001 through 2036, 37 for the United States in terms of complete high school graduates. If you flip that page, you're going to see the same thing just for the state of Georgia. Bear in mind, this is all based on birth rate. There is some consideration for migration, but they can't project out migration. There have been, if you go back into past reports from the Western Interstate Commission on Higher Education, which is where this report's from, and when you receive, I don't know if I put it in the minutes or send it out to everybody because I think it's 200 pages long. You'll get every sector in the United States, every state, plus the United States, all of the data projection. But the persistent problem that we're dealing with, we talked about it last time, was what you see in 2001 in the United States. So if you look at that number, you have 2.8 million high school graduates. Now, as universities, as a sector, we were trying to meet that demand, right? In a wide variety of dimensions. And if you look at those numbers go up from 2.8 million to, let's say in 2017, 3.7. We built capacity into American universities across the country, into lots of states where depopulation was going to happen. Because bear in mind, we knew where those birth rates were going to go, but we were still building capacity into universities. And now you see that we will tap out in the United States. And it doesn't seem dramatic after 2026, does it, to go from 3.9 million to 3.8. But what you don't see is growth. And for the last 40 years, all we've done is build a growth economy around higher education. So the coin of the realm is always, how do you get more? How do you get bigger? How do you expand? And we are in the midst right now, accelerated by COVID, having to change those economic calculuses. Because now all of a sudden it's, how do we create value for whomever's taking advantage of the university? How do we affect more learners at more times in their life? How do we leverage technology to insert education into places in which it didn't exist? And bigger is not always better in that framework. That is the struggle we're going through. If you would like, Lumenon put out a fantastic report, which I had studied before I came here as president. And all it focuses on is excess capacity in higher education throughout the United States, and then broken down by state. So when I came in 2020, that was data that had been out for a long time. We knew those problems were persistent, and we knew that eventually you have to solve them. I remember sitting in administrative meetings in the early 2010s, and we were talking about these very things. But when we talked about them, they were so far off that we just kind of ignored them. And we didn't really have to pay attention to them right until maybe 2022 or 2023, and then COVID hit. And that is coupled with what I said last time, just a decreasing number of high school graduates participating in college, highlighted by high school graduates, even here locally, who were at 65% college-going population in 2010, and now down to 50%. We got a lot of work to do on that front, but in our last discussion last month, I said I would bring back that data so that everybody has this, we're all looking at the same things. This does get updated periodically. Bear in mind, there have been some things that have happened, the last couple of years where birth rates are probably going to go up a little bit. Being locked in your house for a few months, people run out of things to do, so they decided to make some babies. And that's fantastic. Those babies won't be coming to university until 2040. And we've got a capacity problem to solve in the in-between. And the way they're going to experience a university at any level is going to be different in 2040 than it is today. I highlight all of those things so that we're all dealing with the same problem that needs to be solved. And that problem, from my vantage point, is always, how do we create value for people who need to learn? What does that learning do for them in their lives? If we can get that piece right and change and evolve as we go, then economically, the university makes sense. Because bear in mind, our entire economy goes back to a few simple numbers. Headcount, student credit hours, grants, because grants can be a great source of funding. When we go out and get a lot of research grants, that funds great problem solving for the world, but it also creates indirect funding for the institution so that we're able to support research and support researchers. Fundraising is obviously a key part of that. And we're going to have to find new sources of revenue and partnerships with companies. You've seen a lot of universities, and we are among them, who are going out and making sure that we're the preferred educational provider for a particular company who pays the tuition, right, for their employees. Well, I don't mind lining that up and saying, hey, we're gonna be the learning provider in that type of environment instead of, or maybe alongside with, high school graduates, lots of graduate students. I want to say, when you look at these numbers, if you're a baccalaureate granting institution in the United States, you're scared to death right now. When I say baccalaureate granting, I don't mean one that provides baccalaureate degrees. I mean, it primarily provides them, which means I think less than 5%, John would know the Carnegie rating probably better than me, less than 5% of their graduates are coming out of graduate programs. Well, we have a very strong enterprise on graduate programming and are well positioned to continue to grow that. So with that, I'll end my remarks on that subject. Are there any questions related to demographics or that problem? Anything else that I can provide on that front? And I am sharing all of the data with you from this particular report. And I'll continue to do that as they update it, which this organization does on a regular basis.
Questions online or in the room?
And sorry for those of you who are online who do not have this in front of you. But I think you track along with the numbers. Okay. Great. Well, let me just give you a few other things. First, last board meeting until the new year this past week, Board of Regents met. Not a tremendous amount of business transacted, although we did have our Nexus and Supply Chain Logistics in the Richards College of Business approved by the board, which now means it moves on to Saks. And Dr. Gregg, totally agree with you. Applause for bringing that one out. That is those new credentials matter a lot, especially in a more competitive environments. Second, we obviously had an election Tuesday. We still have an election today because all of the results are not in. But those that affect the University of West Georgia the most are who is elected to the state legislature, where that sits, and then where we sit in their hearts and minds. I will tell you that state legislature has been very good to the university. Last year's higher education budget was like nothing I've ever seen in my career in any of the states I've worked in. We're hoping to continue to push for renewed resources, especially as we're in a changing economy. There are ways for the state to participate in helping to de-stress universities or remove those stress points. My hope is that the legislative delegation will continue to push for that as a system. So you know how it works. We push for the interests of the University of West Georgia. But when it comes to policy points for higher education, the chancellor gives us direction, and then all of the universities will support the same outcomes. For instance, the removal of the special institutional fee last year, that students were getting charged every single semester, and having the state replace that funding for institutions so there was no harm to us and only a benefit to students. We all lobbied for that across the entire system, and we're successful in that. We are going to be arguing for more capital development funding for the University of West Georgia. We've got space that needs to be renewed. You'll keep in mind that humanities, which is currently ongoing, that's a completely state-funded project that we were able to lobby for the last 2 years. And that is, as of today, on track. Should be able to occupy in June, move in July, and have students start attending class in that building in August. I wish I wouldn't have said that out loud, because the minute I do, something's going to go awry. We have been hosting the legislative delegation, spending a lot of time with the legislative delegation over the last few weeks. And that continued even yesterday here on campus. We had the entire delegation, including our newly elected representatives for these districts. And know that when I say these districts, we're in new districts right now because we just went through redistricting in the state of Georgia. So we do have some new people representing new interests inside of that delegation. The legislative session will begin on the 1st of January. And I will spend a significant amount of time in Atlanta as a result of that. But I do feel like we're in a good position with those individuals, right? And with that, so that we can manage time, because I always appreciate Dr. Weber giving us time, but also giving us limits. So, any questions on any subject for him?
Sharing these numbers. As you look at these numbers, how long do you think we should plan for? The next 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years?
Oh,
As we build capacity.
that's a great question. For those of you online who didn't hear, when we look at the demographic numbers, the question is, how long do we plan for? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? All of those. We have to be planning for, I would put it into a couple of different cycles. One, what are we doing in the next 24 months that changes the value proposition for those who are coming to the University of West Georgia for something, right? Now, what can we become in the next 5? What can we become in the next 10? And I'm going to give this as a hypothetical. I'm going to say it again, just a hypothetical. But I've been at a university where we mounted engineering. Right? If we decided we wanted to be a school that offers engineering, which is a heavy lift, bear in mind, or a school that has a vet school or a medical school, you can't do that overnight, right? We have to start planting the seeds early to say 10 years from now, we're going to be a university that is creating physicians and surgeons. That is parallel process with what do we have to do with the resources that we have right now between now and 2024. So there has to be a constant plan. I also very strongly believe that based on these numbers, you got to have a beachhead of what is the University of West Georgia in 2030, 2040. Now, I believe, and I said in my university address, we're doing a lot of those things to transition, probably not doing them fast enough. But we are, there are good conversations going on right now at this university of, well, we got a lot, if we have X international or intellectual capital, what can we make with that intellectual capital? Maybe it was doing one thing before, but it can do something new. And we can just re-engineer the intellectual capital, people among faculty and researchers. We have to be parallel processing all of those. There isn't one target, because the minute, if we just go for 5 years from now and we hit all of those targets, we're going to be 5 years behind because the world was already planned ahead. We have to be going to where the puck is going to land, as Wayne Gretzky says. Thank you. A pleasure. It's a great question. I hope we don't stop asking that question all the time. That is the question that we are supposed to be struggling with.
My question was largely related, but more specific to the institutional scorecard that I understand that you carry around in your pocket.
I do.
Right? I don't have a copy of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But
also in the Northwest. It's always, yeah.
what are the implications that will result from this institutional scorecard if these enrollment targets are not met? I mean, like, what's going to happen?
So some of it's happening right now.
Right. I mean, I understand the realities that we're living in with declining enrollment, student credit hour production, but we have this tool, this assessment tool. Well, what are going to be the ramifications if those targets are not met?
Yeah, so it's not kind of a specific, if we don't hit the right undergraduate enrollment, something happens. We're lucky. Our undergraduate enrollment over the last 6 years has gone down 22% some change, but our graduate enrollment's gone up 40%. That's been largely with organic growth. So we have other institutions that they've gone down 25 to 30%, but there was no gain anywhere. So we have to look at our mix, where demand is, and we run after it. Our institution will have it'll be the size and scope of our resources. That's what will happen. In fact, when I was appointed president, one of the visits that came down. I was asked that question by Trent Ross, for those of you who know Trent. Trent asked, are you worried about the budget? Because it was 2019. In 2019, this university experienced, they dropped, I say that it's us, but I wasn't here. 1,200 students. 1,200, and those were dropped because of poor processing. Because we had the exact same situation this fall, and we dropped just under 300. And permanently lost 800 or 900 of those students. And he said, are you worried about that? Now, I am always worried about that. Scared to death of that, because there's some sort of problem. Most universities should never drop that many students. But I said, I can't be. Because as president, my job is just to align resources with the scope of the institution. And that's what we're going to do. So either we're a university that has 6,000 students, an appropriate number of employees and buildings and land and usage, or we're a university of 12 or 13,000 students. These numbers are based on what is feasible based on those numbers. So you'll note, for instance, the undergraduate student headcount goal that exists on the scorecard is what we had in fiscal year 21 plus 5%. So that's 10,842 students. Why wouldn't we go for 20? Well, that might not be how the world works out as the 21st century goes on. But can we offer a premier experience to 10,842 undergraduate students, even if 20,000 are clamoring for it? Could we be the people who go, we might have 10,000 graduate students at that time, right? But we cap the number of undergraduate students because of the realities of those who take advantage of baccalaureate education in America. Maybe. This scorecard is rooted in what is actually driving the economy of the University of West Georgia. And let's pay attention to the specific targets that we need to hit. And twice a year, as that data comes in, we might recalibrate it. For instance, what if Wofford College, who my wife used to work at Wofford College, received a $150 million gift from an alum? It was just for operating. They weren't going to spend it in cash. It was mostly endowed. But all of a sudden, the budget for that university had about 10% of its total costs perpetually covered by an endowment that was just spitting out money. Well, that's a really nice situation. Harvard is in a similar situation. It's $40 billion endowment. Well, we've changed our fundraising strategy to make sure that we're really focused on how do we build endowed resources for the University of West Georgia? Because we have to build the wealth of the university to sustain those things. The more we have resources like that, it offsets some losses in other places. So there isn't one answer to your question, but the principle is a simple one. The resources that are available to us from all sources. And we can only control the sources on this scorecard. If the state of Georgia said, you know what, we're going to take 20% of the expenses of the University of West Georgia on top of what we already given, and we're just going to make those, that's going to be funding from the state. Well, then these metrics change because they're not as big a stressor because we have more money coming in from the state. Just like we got a $150 million gift that went to operating, well, that would take a lot of stress off. So this is a dynamic scorecard. It's just today, this year, for the foreseeable future, we got to hit these targets, or we're going to have to continually answer that question.
Quick question that I also into the numbers. It seems to me that even with the changed value proposition to go away from growth and more to the actual value for the students, that the demographic centers or universities and demographic centers still will have an outsized advantage, even if that value proposition changes. And so I'm wondering, is there ever a conversation in the state level to perhaps change the funding formula to move away from what still, I think, is a formula that's indebted to this point? Yeah, I mean, so I mean, we're not the legislators here, but I do feel like we're still kind of hamstrung here.
I couldn't agree with you. Our whole economy is built on more and more. That is exactly the conversation we're taking up. Is we just had a large meeting with the president, chancellor, and I will say, Chancellor Perdue was the governor. Nobody wants to open up a funding formula. When you open up a funding formula in a state, you have to open all pages of the book, not just one page of the book. So you really need somebody who's got some experience on that front to persuade people to go down that road. That is a key piece of what we're pushing for this year. Can we recalibrate the funding to account for things like utilities? I mean, utilities for us have gone up year over year, like 56% for natural gas, I think 45% for electricity. But we didn't do that, and you can't just expect us to go and make more revenue when we have changes like that. We're state agents and we have limits. We don't even get a chance to control our price. So that funding formula conversation, what does the state of Georgia want its universities to be, and how much investment are they going to make, is a real one. We're in a state that has a lot of tax revenue right now, so there is capacity to invest. There are other states that are in the exact same situation, same type of funding formula, and there is no money because they've lost population, and they are a very unique problem. I like our problems because at least we get to talk about that. Chancellor Perdue is that is one of the key priorities that he expressed to the board on Tuesday this week about what he'll be doing with his vacation during December.
Great, thank you.
It's a tough one, and we've been talking about funding formula for a long time. I think there's a tolerance to open that up. I'm hoping there's a tolerance to open it up. But this has to change. You can't do a headcount economy in universities for the next 20 years and not expect a lot of contraction in our industry. You just can't. So states are going to have to answer that question. Georgia, in particular, because we have people moving here. There's so much in terms of economic development that requires intellectual capital. We're probably pressed to answer that question.
Any questions online?
No, but Gavin Lee, thanks you very much for this.
Tell them thanks for the questions. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Provost Tucker.
It's great to be with you all this afternoon. I've got a handout as well. Mine's smaller, but information packed. I think I counted, we've got 15 handouts, 16 in the room. I apologize. Come find me after this and I will make sure that you get this information, even if it's not on the information card. This is Winter West, and I want to start with that because this is the inaugural year of Winter West. I hope you all have seen some of the updates that have come around, and I want to begin with that in a conversation because Academic Affairs is leading this, but it is highly connected to just about every area across the institution. In some places, one might argue that this is a facilities or a student affairs. But Academic Affairs is leading this because at the center of this event, week after Thanksgiving, Tuesday to Friday, I hope that you'll put it on your calendar. A lot of it is free to the community and to faculty and staff and students. Some of it you can pay and decorate some cookies and have some extra sugar in your bloodstream. But great theatrical performances, great creation of student artists. In addition, computing students, putting LED lights and programming them to music. It really captures the essence of West Georgia in that we don't do one thing well, we do a lot of things and combining them with excellence. And the goal of Winter West is to not only create a experience for our community on campus, but also the regional community. I think many of you have heard me say, if you go 50 miles north, south, east, or west, you've got Callaway, you've got Oxford, you've got Life, and you've got Atlanta Botanical, all doing kind of light displays. And in some of your neighborhoods, maybe there's something to rival some of that. But here on this campus, we want the community to come to campus because, as you know, the majority of students that visit campus, make that connection with West Georgia, end up being students here. So this is a recruitment event. It's also a means to highlight the talent of our faculty and students and staff and broadcast broadly to the community that we've got excellence. And if you're interested in being a part of that, we want you here at West Georgia. Yes, there are a lot of logistics around that, and I appreciate the collaboration with student affairs, facilities, finance, a lot of different operations that go into this, but it's going to be a fantastic event, and we're going to build year after year after year in the same way that Callaway, when they started their lights, just had a frog in the pond, and now it's tremendous. So I hope you and your families and your friends will come out and really enjoy that season. If you go by the campus center right now, you'll see we've already got some garland wrapping some of those light poles, and then the works of our students will really be showcased. So I start with that because it really typifies a lot of the creativity that's going on. I'd like to continue by pointing out Entrepreneurship Week, the Richards College of Business, some fantastic events with a pitch competition, a great lunch, and just a lot of energy around what entrepreneurship is. And if you hear Dean Johnson talk about this, it's not just a Richards College of Business. Entrepreneurship is across the institution, just as Winter West displays. So I hope that for the faculty online and here, you'll see Entrepreneurship Week coming up again. And I hope that you will connect your students to that. It's a great way if they're nervous, if they've never done a pitch before, kind of that 1 minute, sell me on your idea. It's a great experience, and the mentorship that they get out of that in any of their academic disciplines, they've got an opportunity to be elevated. Just yesterday, got to see Dave Collins and students pulling over 1,000 of their creations out of the kiln here on campus. That's a unique experience and a fantastic showcase of the talent of our students. And speaking of Winter West, come out, there's be some booths there. You can see what they've created and maybe buy some holiday presents for some of your people on that. We met a month ago on the 14th in October, and just after that, Wolf Internet Radio was invited to the White House. You might have seen this in the academic newsletter. Kudos to Wolf Internet Radio, one of 15 people in the room with Vice President Harris and talking about campus radio and what that means to the nation. So again, UWG is killing it in that regard. So kudos to them and those students. And as President Kelly mentioned, we've got the Nexus in Supply Chain Management just passed in the Board of Regents. I point that out because often when the Nexus degree was created in the state of Georgia, there were questions around what is that? Is it just an associate's degree? Help me understand what this 2-year degree is really about. And it was created with the intent of, people talk about stackable credentials, right? You've heard this term. Can I take a certificate? Can I build on that? And a Nexus is designed to get people employed quickly with domain expertise. So it's the 42 hours in discipline, and then 42 hours of gen ed, and then 18 hours in discipline with an emphasis in experiential learning, tied to an internship or a project of significance. We've got a Nexus on the agenda today. And so at West Georgia, a lot of institutions in the USG will shy away from this and say, well, we're a 4-year or a graduate institution or an R1. That's not our place. UWG, and I think it's very smart of our faculty to lean into this, is saying, we've got a BBA in management. We can add a Nexus in supply chain, which we already have expertise. We've already got courses in. And now this gives that embedded stackable credential. In 2 years, you can be employed in this area. You can be answering that question of access and affordability of higher education, and then continue on with their BBA. The Nexus in Computing that you all passed last year, and we just launched this semester, is also embedded in that Bachelor's of Computing. So students can get some skills. And in fact, if you add that to dual enrollment, in high school, a year after graduating high school, you can have this Nexus degree, be employed, making good money, and then continue the bachelor's and graduate and so on. So it provides a way for us to address a lot of the challenges facing higher education from an affordability and access, doing business in new ways that are going to attract students to UWG in distinctive ways. So kudos to the archive faculty and UWG in general for adding these Nexus degrees. Nexuses or Nexi? Help me out, the linguists in the room. We'll leave that one for the debate. But it's not just about unique experience. We're also doing things in support of students in so many ways across academic affairs. One I'd like to point out to you that many of you are probably engaged in is this day one access, right? If you're familiar with the situation, students can, maybe wait for their financial aid or wait for the ability to afford textbooks. But can we give them lowest price by kind of collective bargaining and give them digital day one access to this content at a reduced price? Happy to say that 2 years ago when this was launched at UWG, 644 students participated in it. This semester, fall 22, we've got 4,854 students. So do some quick math. That's a 8-fold increase in the number of students across 2 years participating. And in those 2 years, we've saved students $1.4 million in materials costs based on textbook. That's tremendous. And hats off to all of the faculty who have worked with Elizabeth to make that possible. This is just best practice and what does higher education look like today? If you were like me, back in the day, I would go to the bookstore, you'd look for your course list, you just kind of pull them off and get your arm day workout, right? You're carrying this huge stack of books, and it would be $800. Right? Now it's a tenth of that price. Incredibly valuable. Students are still getting the content, but at a much more affordable price. And it also doesn't discriminate between those who are on financial aid and those who are not, because they've got immediate access to this. And then when their financial aid comes in, it is taken care of. So I point that out to give a shout out to what West Georgia is doing to really meet that access and affordability. I want to give an update, and I know Dr. Khan, I got your email earlier this week, appreciate that. And shout out to the Faculty Development Committee and the work that you all have done around PTR and promotion and tenure and the updates in the handbook. I'll give a quick update. I'm happy to take questions on that. But I agree with the FEC and their role is not to create these rubrics and define that, but that's really a departmental or a school or college role to define what do the metrics and the rubrics look like for P&T and PTR. We're going to be working on that, and the deadlines I'll be passing on soon in coordination with you, Dr. Khan. So more information to come on that, but I will reiterate again that no one's going to get caught in this transition. At the RACA meeting earlier, I guess it would be end of last month, provosts were talking about the timeline on this, the feedback the system office is giving to institutions about their modified handbooks and PTR. There is appropriate shift in time to allow for people who are in mid-cycle in promotion and tenure to make sure that they've got an adequate time to, under this new dispensation. So I've said it before, I want to iterate every time we talk about PTR and P&T that we will have a grace period before any new changes in the department, school, college go into effect, and people that are mid-cycle going up for promotion and tenure in the near future know and have kind of solid footing on which to submit their materials. Also want to address the budget adjustments for academic affairs. I appreciate the work that all of the colleges and schools have done on this, and the deans leading these discussions locally. I presented this to the Faculty Senate Budget Committee last week, and appreciate Mina Rollins and the work of that group. The update that I think many of you all have seen in the last so many number of years, right? We've seen revenue decline in credit hour production to the president's previous comments, and the solve that academic affairs had comes down to what we submitted to the USG for their review. We've got 11 open positions currently not filled, and that's the first thing that we're going to. We're going to eliminate those 11 open vacancies created in the past year. We're reducing operating part-time and summer reserve. To understand how summer works, we pulled back some of our budget to address the need there. We are revenue positive in summer, so historically we've kind of parked some money. We're no longer obligated to do that. We can still make payroll and summer is covered. So we've got some flexibility in not parking that much money. And all total, we're going to realize about $500,000 in operating and part-time budget reductions. So going to that as the next least painful option. And then we are doing non-renewals that have been submitted. 17 positions. It will be 15 faculty and 2 staff that have been submitted for a total solve across academic affairs of $2.2 million. Couple that most recently in the last 2 years prior with $4 million in reduction through vacancies coming open and shifting resources. That's less than half of the revenue loss, which comes out to about $15 million across the last 4 years. So it is tough to reduce budgets, and I know that this was not easy work that the deans and faculty have had discussions around, but I do want to emphasize that we are going to the least impactful sources of funds tied to excess capacity. So looking at area-specific credit hour reduction, it would not put West Georgia in a good position to kind of eliminate all professional development and travel, which other institutions have done in similar situations, because the academic programs that we have and the faculty that we have need that investment ongoing to continue that excellence that we talked about earlier today. So I share that with you. Further updates through the Faculty Senate Budget Committee. Also, want to give an update on ITS. Recently, that was aligned with academic affairs, and we've had some great conversations around resourcing. We've got 31 different places across the institution with 10 or more PCs, so let's call them labs. A lot of times, these are used for very specific reasons, and we want to preserve that. And if you've got unique hardware needs, I think that gets back to the question that we had last time around Google Drive space, and can we customize that, right? We still want to give the ability to customize that, but if we look at it holistically, do we really need 31 spaces where the doors might be shut for a significant portion of the week? Can we offer more consistent installation hardware, software, where whether I'm in this building, whether I'm across the campus, I can log into a computer and all the software that I need and all of the files that I have stored go with me, rather than being bound to a particular space. It also gives us the ability to provide consistency and life cycle replacement for faculty and staff, in addition to these spaces. We're looking at opportunities to say, it's not dependent on a dean's budget or a department budget to buy a new laptop or buy a new desktop for faculty who need that or staff who need that, but let's create a standard approach to giving you all the resources that you need. More details to come, but want to share, and I welcome discussion around that. I want to go back to, you've got specific need to drive a piece of equipment, or you've got unique hardware or software requirements, we're going to make sure that you get that. Last thing I'd like to share with you is, in addition to all of the great experiences that students and faculty and staff have had, we've spent a lot of time in the last month connecting with superintendents and with the Executive Vice Chancellor. Dr. Mongo visited campus a few weeks ago and had a tour of a number of our facilities, talked with deans, faculty, and students, really highlighting excellence. He came away with that from that visit incredibly impressed with West Georgia. At the Board of Regents meeting that we had earlier this week, he found me and we talked, and he reiterated that he likes what West Georgia is doing and is really impressed with how we're going towards areas of workforce demand in the state and supporting students with distinction, both inside and outside the classroom. The superintendents that visited similarly had great things to say about our responsiveness, in particular in the College of Education, and the connections and the teachers that we are providing and leadership development that we have. So for all of the challenges more broadly across higher education, I'm optimistic. I continue to be optimistic of where we are and how we're positioned. Very close proximity to largest metro area in the Southeast, great business opportunity, employment opportunity for our students. And I'll leave you with that optimism, right? The question earlier of what does the demographic look like locally for us? Is there consideration? I'll leave it to Kim Scranage, Vice President for Strategic Enrollment Management, to dive into specific numbers. But I'll say the lead indicators for UWG look very strong. Brad applications for spring of 23 are up by 25%. Admits up by 10%. The computing degrees that we just launched this semester have grown CS and computing credit hour production by 53%. And that's just out of the gate. So these new degrees that you all have reviewed in the last year, the new degrees that you're reviewing this year, the Nexus in Supply Chain, the GFA Nexus that's here before you. I know the two Masters of Science degrees in Applied Business Analytics and Cybersecurity and Information Management. Those are well received and being reviewed by the system, and they will drive enrollment in those programs and then all the associated classes that go along with them. So with that, I'll leave on the optimism of growth at UWG. Happy to take any questions.
Dr. President, could we add one metric to that?
Please.
From an undergraduate perspective, our inquiries, applications, and admits are currently on par with 2019. If you look back at those numbers, those are incredibly healthy numbers that exceed 20 or 21.
And would be very envied by many institutions throughout the state.
That's right.
Absolutely. Great point. Thank you.
Questions for the provost? Surely he wasn't that clear.
Appreciate your confidence in me.
Okay.
Thank you
so much.
Well, if you think of something, please find me today, thereafter, and I do hope that you come out to Winter West. It's going to be a great experience. Bring your sweet tooth. Thank you all.
Thank you both so much. We always appreciate hearing from you and being able to ask you questions that are very important to us and helpful to get your answers. So this week was announced as Ethics Awareness Week, which I don't remember if that's happened before. Is that new?
No.
It has happened before? This is the thing about ethics, right? They kind of travel beneath the surface too easily. And but I really appreciate this because that's an area where I do a lot of work. And raising awareness of ethics, I think, is important for us at this time because we have things going on that are struggle for many of us and differentially for some of us compared to others. And I think back to the raising of ethics awareness that happened in the last century, primarily as a consequence of 2 world wars and the atrocities that accompany those world wars, and how the systems of ethics that were in place were questioned in a way that revealed that some of these abstract ethical systems might not have functioned in a way that was sensitive to the humanity of the persons involved. And so it's been on my mind as we've been looking at strategic alignment that whatever we are facing and whatever decisions we make about how to manage what we are facing, at the end of the day, everything that's going on affects people. And one of the things I've learned from studying the relational turn in ethics, as it's sometimes called, is that everything we do has an impact on others. And others are human beings and deserve that attention and care. So when we talk about these strategic alignment activities that we have to undergo, including the non-renewal of 17 of our colleagues, 15 faculty, 2 staff, those are people, and they're hurt by these consequences that we have to enact. And so one of the things that the Senate can do, and I think, well, we're going to do, I talked to the executive committee about this, and the executive committee and myself are eager to serve in a kind of ad hoc committee role as a welfare committee for our faculty who are going to be non-renewed. And to be available to you, and if you're hearing now, great. If not, we hope to find out who you are and to be a resource to you to offer support and to help you find your way. If it means leaving West Georgia, which non-renewal means that we can help you find your way and be just a support system and maybe some expertise that we have to help find you your next sort of phase of life. And we're so, I just want to express on behalf of the executive committee that I was very touched by that committee being so willing and available to provide that support. So we'll talk more about how we can do that and what role this executive committee can play in that. But I want you to know that the Senate is mindful of the persons who are affected by these alignment necessities. The other thing I'll just mention is a general information item. I've called it Chats with the Senate Chair. These are opportunities for you and anyone on campus to meet with me just to talk about ideas, innovative ideas that I can be aware of, made aware of, ethical ideas and concerns that are important. But in my working with the provost, the president, I'm grateful to be able to have access to them and to work with them closely, as well as working with the faculty senate as a whole. I want to be as informed as possible. And so being able to take some time to just exchange ideas, hear what's on people's minds, and think strategically about what we can do to advance the strategic mission of this university. The first of these will be Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, at 9:30 a.m. We'll meet in the foyer of Melson. And then depending on the group size, we'll find a location and talk. So that's available to you. To anyone on campus, if you'd like to just come and talk and meet with me. And then if you are non-renewed, do realize that the Faculty Senate is here to assist you. Those are the only two announcements I have, and thank you for listening to me on that. I'm just going to briefly ask if any of our committee chairs, executive committee chairs, have general updates for the Faculty Senate body before we turn over time to our specific committee business. Yeah.
So I emailed faculty senators, but I really want you to talk to your constituents about the course in LMS shells and the templates that are, this is in the very early stage, but get your faculty to sign up for the Google form to give us feedback. Where we're working with IFE, I'm the chair of the TLA committee. So we're working with IFE and we're going to be designing standardized templates that can be used. Now, this is going to be great for students in terms of cutting down cognitive overload, standardized navigation, and work within your disciplines and provide you a shell to work with to customize your freedom. So it's not going to dictate to you what to do or what to put in, but it helps with accessibility, RSI, and student and cutting down student cognitive overload. But we need your feedback. We have the general survey up created by IFE. From there, we'll take that data, we'll go into a more specific survey or tool to collect more information from you. Student feedback, all of this will help in that design. So this is really faculty driven to benefit students.
Thank you, Jason. Others?
Shelley had a question.
Shelley, question.
Jason, question, is this going through only as, through the Senate, only as an information item and not as a voting item?
So we're in the really early stages right now, and we're collecting data and feedback, and then we're gonna take it from there. Whatever, you know, so this is very early because we wanna design something, pilot it, and then take it from there as far as the process, the appropriate process for approval.
My expectation, as with all things, is that there's an administrative activity going on here as well as the Faculty Senate activity. Those are engaging with each other, so we have communication. But it has not yet become a Faculty Senate item of information or action because it's early in the process. But to Shelley's question, Jason, as best as you can speak to it, you would anticipate that that would become a Faculty Senate item of information and action at some point down the road.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's safe to say for my administrators?
Yeah, and I appreciate everyone who's been involved in that conversation to start. The genesis of this was the student support, as you're saying. The National Institute for Student Success at the Georgia State University, Tim Rennick, we're working with him and that team. And at a provost meeting earlier this semester, other institutions were reporting the number one thing to move the needle and improve student retention, success, and graduation rates was to use exactly what you're talking about. Standard and consistent approaches to course content delivery, roster verification, assignment submission. Excuse me, if I'm a student, I know where to click to figure out that yes, indeed, my assignment is in. There's no ambiguity, it can't get lost. And then I know where, what my grade is and that I'm actually in the class. These little things really add up. And LMS has come a long way. Again, reiterating that we're not telling faculty what must go into these. It's just using this template to remove friction. The example I give is I can travel to any state, any city in the US, and I know the color and the shape of the signs are going to be consistent. So I can easily navigate those cities, even if I've never been there. Same idea here. Different courses, I know the navigation of the tool, but obviously Carrollton, very different from El Paso, from San Diego. Let's keep the local beautifulness of our courses in the same way that each city has their distinctive brand as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nadia has a question.
Nadia? Go
So
ahead.
I had a new problem this fall that has never come up before, but I had students in my online classes who did not know what CourseDen was, how to find it, and how to ever find their class. So the problem that I've run into this semester, at least, was one of students who clearly should have gotten better information at orientation. Could you comment on what the orientation staff is doing to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because that was a very serious student success issue. Students had no idea where to find their online class. Once they got in a class, I can help them. I know how to do that. But if a student has no idea what CourseDen even is,
That's a good way to end it. Just. Someone want to take that up? Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think the administration will want to take that one and get with the orientation staff to make sure that's not going to happen in the future. Is there anything else anyone wants to add on that?
One thing, sorry. I had all this planned and, I left my notes in my office, so this is, but also Ally is coming in. Ally is an accessibility check for CourseDen, so please reach out to myself, and I can follow your emails and pick out, if you want to test it, pick out a former CourseDen class, so a past semester, and we can get your email and your course name to Janet and her online group, and then that'll hook up that past course, and you can see what Ally does in terms of checking videos, handouts, readings, and things like that for accessibility. So this will be coming soon for us, and will be apparently a part of CourseDen, but we want to get folks checking it out early so they can see what it entails and what it does for you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? From a Senate perspective, the curriculum is our baby, right? We care a great deal as faculty about that. So it'll be really important to engage with the TLA and IFE and just your administrative, units to make sure that where there are, and there inevitably will be some kinds of questions or implications overlap around what the content is and how these shells get formed. And then where the intellectual property, rests, it's gonna be very important that we're all engaging in this conversation. I really appreciate word getting out quickly from you, Jason, to the faculty to get started thinking on this and working with us on this, as well as from IFE. And so let's be sure that we are engaged. There's no reason not to be, and there's many ways to be engaged, okay?
Yeah, and also I understand that my domain is computing, but I'm the biggest critic in the room on computing systems, right? They should be easy to use. So I'll also add that if we are going to adopt this approach across CWG, give really good support to the faculty to use these systems. I just want to make sure we're very clear on that. So IFE and others, we will give you all of the support and scaffolding necessary, rather than just throwing you deep in the water and saying, hey, figure it out. Thank you.
Now, if we have a faculty who doesn't know what CourseDen is, you can have you can have some real work to do there. Yeah.
Even in accessibility workshops, we have these information sessions right now, running one a week. So if folks have questions about what the common core components are, what Ally is, how it works, and what just the RSI, another acronym for it, that's regular and substantive interaction. It's a federal regulation that went into effect last July 2020. And so we need to make sure that we're complying with that, as well as ADA things. So we're doing what we can. I've also offered to tailor workshops, course design, accessibility for certain programs for departments, colleges, however we want to do it. So some folks are starting to reach out about that. We also had a proposal from the College of Business. They were talking about maybe getting a speaker in, somebody renowned, who can talk about good course design as a kind of kickoff event. And so I'm working with them now. I've got a couple names in mind. And so we're doing as much as we can, but again, to echo what Dr. Preston and what Jason is saying here, like we need your feedback. We need to know what you need so that we can provide it, but we very much want your input and what this looks like. It's going to work best if we have it. So
Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments or questions on this topic? Any other chair updates? Farouk?
This is the beginning brief, the FTC we will also meet one more time before Thanksgiving. We are working on the revisions to the faculty handbook. Work is in progress, fairly rapidly, and I will have something substantive to report in the next Senate meeting.
Thank you, Farouk. And may I just report that the FTC will not create rubrics, but will be available to be a resource to help units ensure that their rubrics are not unusual in relation to other units rubrics. So we want to make sure that the rubrics for this are going to be reasonable, fair, and not too many outliers for reasons that don't make a lot of sense across different units, so that those evaluation criteria are even and balanced across the universe. Did you want to? Yeah.
Language in the faculty handbook, as requested by Dr. Noble, that there is oversight which is to be provided by someone, and in the mind of the faculty development committee, that someone's are going to be the deans of the colleges and the provost. At the same time, the FTC is happy to be a conduit for whoever wants to do so, to share their rubrics so that there is ongoing conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Other updates from any of our chairs?
Yeah.
Gavin, go ahead. Gavin?
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for giving me the time. Thank you, President Kelly and Provost Preston for giving us those information. And thank you, Laura, for making everything work. I just have one update. Can you guys hear me properly? Sorry.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Just one update. We are, as we mentioned from FITC, sorry, we are, as I mentioned and as the President and Provost mentioned, losing some size on our Google storage. Please don't panic. The sky is not falling. Some people need extra size on that, given the nature of their disciplines. In the meeting I had with Chair Reber and Provost Preston said, please don't panic. Go to your unit heads, or indeed him, and we can buy, or they will buy. I'm not spending any money. They will buy you extra space. They will buy you extra space if needed. I know there's been a lot of panic around campus. There's no need for anyone to panic. If you need more room, your units can buy you more room. I hope I'm reflecting that correctly, Provost Preston.
Yes. And that gets back to my ITS and customizing what you need. Clearly, there are some faculty who have large files, have need for do video editing. Absolutely, we'll make sure that you get what you need.
So
Okay.
I just
Go ahead, Gavin.
thank you very much.
All right. Any other updates, comments? Okay, so we'll turn the time over to our UPC chair, Kim Green, and we'll do some business.
We have a set of proposals that will require 4 votes for today. The first 3 items listed are 3 courses with the title Introduction to Science Pedagogy. They'll be voted on as a block. This is a 1-hour course that's required for students who are hired as teaching assistants in the geography, geology, and physics introductory lab courses. So this is one course being cross-listed with those 3 prefixes. The students in these areas do have open elective hours, so that this requirement will fit into the existing credit hours for their programs. And the course is going to include general training on instructional techniques, as well as professional development activities related to teaching. Are there any questions about this Introduction to Science Pedagogy? Okay, so we're ready to vote then. All in favor of approving these 3 courses? One second. Okay, and any opposed? And any abstaining? Okay. Next, we have 4 courses that will be voted on as a block, all with the title Scientific Communication. These are all the same course, also being cross-listed with the 4 prefixes here. At the October meeting of the Senate, you might remember that this course with the physics prefix was already approved. These additional 4 courses are just caught up now in curricula. This is the course oriented towards science majors who are interested in becoming teachers. It's also part of the accelerated bachelor's to master's pathways. So you'll see the 5,000 level listing for these classes in a few minutes from GPC, I believe. So these 4 courses actually just follow along with the course. The course already exists. And these are just the prefixes for these disciplines. Any questions? Okay, we'll vote for this. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Let me get 1 minute on here. Okay, no problem. No opposed in the room. Any abstaining? No opposed. Okay. So our next item is the Nexus degree that's been mentioned. This is from the College of Education and a Nexus in digital entertainment, esports, and game development. And as we mentioned, this is one of the 60-hour 2-year degrees that providing a shorter focused path to developing skills. This program will allow students to earn both the Nexus and a Georgia Film Academy certification. The 18 hours that are focused in the field, including that required experiential learning part of the program, are Georgia Film Academy offerings. This esports Nexus does also have synergies with several degrees on campus that include computing, interdisciplinary studies, marketing, mass communication, and sport management. This would be the 4th Nexus program, the 4th that's been presented for Senate approval, and the 2nd one this school year. At our September meeting, there was a question about how long these have existed, and I found that information. The university system established these programs in 2018, and given the amount of time to work through the curriculum approval process and the pandemic, there's no real track record yet on their success. But as some related information, the state of Georgia is ranked by a noted economic development publication as 1st in the country in workforce development, and we have been up that for 13 consecutive years, due in part to fast upskilling approaches that are similar to this. We're also, for the 9th consecutive year, the best state in the country for doing business, which is part of what's driving the tax revenue that's supporting the universities, that's keeping us from having to cut budgets so much. Atlanta is an esports hub, the esports capital of the United States so far. So this is an emerging industry, and the Georgia Film Academy is using the same approach that they've used with getting people into film and television production industries, which has been successful so far. So that's my spiel in support of the Nexus esports. I'll take any questions. Oh, yes.
I have just one comment to add, not to start the vote or any sort of friendly movement, but just a comment that in the language for this proposal for this Nexus degree, it mentions a company specifically called Skillsoft. And as I had a discussion with Provost Preston prior to the start of this meeting, that is more of an example of a company that could be involved as a corporation with these students' kind of corporate experiences, but it is not limited to that. So just a clarification that was helpful, that is not clear in the proposal.
Okay, should we modify that?
There was no request to.
Okay, just a note, that's. Okay.
Well, that's what GFA GFC, they identified skills. That's GFA.
The Georgia.
Universities as a consortium, it's GFC. And so GFA is a part of, it's a long drawn out.
That particular company is identified as it's an identified partner for this delivery of that program. And again, there may be others that get identified or whatever. It's an identified program.
Understood. Yes. I just didn't, I was.
And there are no other identified partners.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's expressly, it's in esports, it's an esports company.
Just like with Trilla Studios, that's a part of the language for the GFC payroll.
Thank you.
Yes, these, the Georgia Film Academy, the FinTech Academy, those things are separate from us, and so they can be confusing. Okay, any other questions or comments about this nexus? As information, there's another one coming, but we'll see another one in another few meetings. All right, ready to vote? All in favor of this nexus? Okay. Any opposed? Or any abstaining? Okay. Thank you. And one more vote then. This is a revision to the sport management BS. This proposal creates an accelerated bachelor's to master's pathway, and they've identified 4 courses from which students can select 12 hours that will count toward both the bachelor's and the master's degree. Any questions for that sport management? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Or any abstaining? Okay. Then lastly, we just have an information item. The undergraduate research committee submitted the list of courses that it has approved to receive the undergraduate research high impact practice attribute in the banner listing of courses, and UPC reviewed that list and approved it, and it was attached as part of the agenda for this meeting. Okay.
Thank you. For your work. Okay, Patrick, graduate programs.
Good afternoon. The first GPC proposal from the department is from the Department of English, Film, Language, and Performing Arts in Caxton. The proposal is to modify the English MA program. In this proposal, the graduate foreign language requirement will be replaced with an embedded diversity global studies requirement by completing at least one program course with a built-in diversity element, such as courses with significant content in African-American literature, including film, Native American literature, global or post-colonial literature, theoretical approaches focused on global diversity perspectives or similar topics. This change will bring UWG's English MA program in line with similar programs across the nation. In addition, the foreign language requirement for graduate students created a graduation bottleneck, as a number of students come into the program from other BA programs in English outside UWG, where the 2002 course in an international language is not required. Any questions or discussion? All right, we can launch, hearing none, we can launch the poll. Question is on accepting the proposal to modify the English MA program to replace the foreign language requirement with an embedded diversity global studies requirement. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed, please raise your hands. And thank you. Those who abstain, raise your hand. Thank you. That proposal passes. The second proposal is another modification to the English MA program. This proposal is to delete the GRE for admission to the English MA program. The rationale is that across the nation, graduate programs in the humanities are dropping the GRE requirement for admission. Thus, in deleting our English MA program, we would be following best practices in the industry. Specifically, the GRE requirement presents an equity issue, as the over $200 fee for taking it especially hurts students from lower income, rural, and first-generation college and military families. Moreover, the other admission requirements, 3.2 GPA minimum, 3 letters of recommendation, personal statement and transcripts are very much sufficient for a stringent review of our applicant pool. Dropping this requirement will significantly improve recruitment to the program. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we can launch the poll. The questions on accepting the proposal to modify the English MA program to drop the GRE requirement for admission. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those who abstain, please raise your hands. Thank you. That proposal passes. Our next set of proposals are for the Department of Natural Sciences in CACSE. The proposals for 4 new cross-listed courses under the title of Scientific Communication. These would include Biology 5411, Chemistry 5411, Geography 5411, and Geology 5411. These will be voted on as a block. These cross-listed courses will be part of the Accelerated Bachelor's to Master's program, allowing science majors to graduate and get a master's in applied teaching in approximately 1 year. A 5th version of this cross-listed course, Physics 5411, Scientific Communication, was approved at the last Faculty Senate meeting, and the undergraduate versions of these 4 courses were approved earlier as part of UPC's action items. Are there any questions or discussion? Masters of Arts in Applied Teaching.
No, not in applied, Master of Arts in Teaching.
Masters.
It's my understanding that that description inside curriculum was, so I don't know.
Oh, was.
How long ago printed out your version?
Okay, since the update, I must have missed the update. It's not, okay.
The official document should be there.
Okay. Master of Arts. In Master of Arts in Teaching?
Teaching.
Okay, thank you.
Although the other ones can't hear.
Thank you. So for all of these 4 cross-listed courses, the cross-listed courses will be part of the Accelerated Bachelor's to Master's program, allowing science majors to graduate and get a Master's of Arts in teaching in approximately 1 year. Thank you. Any additional discussion or questions or corrections? Okay. Hearing none, we can launch the poll. The questions on accepting the proposal to add 4 new cross-listed courses in scientific communication is Biology 5411, Chem 5411, Geography 5411, and Geology 5411. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those who abstain, please raise your hands. Thank you. The proposal passes. Our next GPC proposal is from the College of Education's Department of Leadership, Research, and School Improvement. The request is to make 2 modifications to the admissions requirements for the EDD program in school improvement. First, remove the letters of recommendation requirement. And second, require applicants to include the required resume or vita, or require applicants to include in the required resume or vita contact information for 3 professional references. The school improvement faculty reviewed the letter of recommendation requirement and determined that it is not a strong evidentiary source that faculty reviewers use during the application review process. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we can launch the poll. The questions on accepting the proposal to modify the EDD program in school improvement removing the letter recommendation requirement, adding the requirement for contact information in the resume or CV. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those who abstain, please raise your hands. Thank you. That proposal passes. Our next proposal is for a modification to the graduate course loads policy in the graduate catalog. The proposed modification would change the definition of a full-time graduate course load to 6 credit hours, a reduction from 9 credit hours, and would change the definition of a half-time graduate course load to 3 credit hours, a reduction from 5 credit hours. This reduction to 3 credit hours for a student to be enrolled half-time is beneficial in that it will allow students to be eligible for federal student aid with enrollment in a single 3 credit hour course. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we can launch the poll. The question is on accepting the proposal to modify the graduate course loads policy. All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed, please raise your hands. Thank you. And those who abstain, please raise your hands. Thank you. That proposal passes. Our final proposal is for a new policy in the graduate catalog specifying the university year and defining a credit hour. This policy is described in Addendum 5 and is designed to mirror similar language in the undergraduate catalog. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we can launch the poll. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those who abstain, please raise your hands. Thank you. That proposal passes. Thank you very much.
Patrick. We'll now turn the time over to Brandy for academic policies. Are you with us? There you are.
I'm here. A couple of things. Laura and I spoke just right before the meeting. There needs to be a change noted in the minutes that this action item is actually about transfer credit evaluation policy and not the policy statement about offering content in an alternate format that will come at a later meeting. So that just needs to be noted. The transfer credit evaluation policy, we are asking for an addition to the current transfer evaluation policy because there is not one that exists to handle transfer credit from one level to another. So from like 1,000 level to a 3,000 level. So you're looking at the current one there. And then as Laura is scrolling down, you will get to the addition that is in red. That's what we're asking to add to the transfer credit evaluation policy. And I'm assuming you guys have read it. So APC voted on this addition to the policy and agreed that we would add it. And so we're asking for approval from the Senate to add this to the policy itself. Laura, since you are in the room and I am not, can you help me with the voting since you can see people?
Yes, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to launch it. Okay, all who approve, just raise your hand. Okay, any objections? And abstentions? Okay.
Thanks, Laura. And then the second item from APC is just an information item. There were 2 errors that were noted by Dr. Gwaltney, our SAC COC liaison, with regard to off-campus and correspondence requirements for undergraduate degrees. One was, there was restriction of off-campus hours, and we do not have that restriction. We offer and plan to expand those. The second issue had to do with correspondence requirements. He could find no record of UWG receiving SAC COC credit to do that. And so the VPA is going to remove that language and submit an administrative form and curriculog to have those removed from all effective programs, just to make sure that that policy is correct. So that's just an information item. And that's all that we had.
Thank you so much, Brandy. Okay, Jonathan, institutional planning.
Great, so just a brief announcement, our representative to the Health West Benevolence Committee informed us that the UWG cookbook is now available for sale. The proceeds from that go to help fund Health West funds of our faculty around campus. The link to that and pricing is available in the faculty senate minutes for today. So you can go there to order your copy. It is noted that copies should be ordered by December.
Thank you so much. Any other business? Okay, then we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Getting through this one.
Thank you, Colleen.